For safe operation, Kito Corporation. This video is intended to raise awareness of hoist safety issues. It does not purport to be a comprehensive guide to safe hoist operation and maintenance practices. Use this guidance in conjunction with the warnings and cautions set out in the owner's manual and safety instructions supplied with the hoist. This governs how you maintain your hoist properly. Now we would like to show you proper procedures of disassembling, assembling, and adjustment of Kito model L5 lever hoist. We hope this video will help you to overhaul and troubleshoot along with the owner's manual. For more details, refer to Maintenance and Troubleshooting in the L5 LB Owner's Manual and Safety Instructions. This video is merely intended to supplement the owner's manual and not to replace it. Improper maintenance may result in fatal accidents or serious injury. Have only a trained or competent person maintain the lever hoist, otherwise contact your dealer. Before disassembling and assembling, regard the following warnings. Perform proper disassembly or assembly in accordance with the owner's manual. The friction plates are dry type. Do not lubricate them. Do not extend the load chain. Remove old grease from the disassembled parts. When you replace components, use only new ones authorized by Kito. To reassemble, apply new grease and use the new split pin and the snap ring. To disassemble and reassemble the hoist, prepare the following tools. Snap ring pliers for opening the snap ring. Socket wrenches for removing and tightening slotted nuts. Brushes for applying grease and moly grease. Wrenches for removing and tightening bolts and nuts. Pliers for removing and fixing split pins. Plastic hammer. Wooden blocks for easy reassembling of the gearing parts. L5 LB is composed of 5 basic portions. Load chain. Free chain adjustment mechanism. Lever assembly. Brake. Gears. Disassembling is performed in this order, and reassembling is performed in reversed order. Remove the split pin, the slotted nut, and the chain pin from the bottom hook set. Turn the free knob to free chain mode, then remove the load chain. This makes disassembling easier. Pull out the split pin. Turn the select lever to up or down to hold the free knob. Loosen and remove the slotted nut while pressing down the spring holder. In this way, the spring holder doesn't pop out. Remove the spring holder and the free chain spring. Turn the select lever to neutral, then remove the free knob, the brake spring, and the cum guide. This completes disassembling of the free chain portion. Remove the domed cap nut and the spring lock washer. Turn the select lever to down. Rotate the lever assembly counterclockwise to remove it from the hoist. Remove the hexagon cap screw and the flange nut. Then separate the lever assembly and the brake cover assembly while holding the select lever upward so that the select pawl spring doesn't pop out. Remove the female thread from the brake cover assembly. Remove the select pawl, spring shaft, and select pawl spring from the lever assembly. This completes disassembling of the lever assembly portion. Remove the brake parts from the pinion in the following order: the friction plate, the ratchet disc, the bushing, the friction plate, and the friction disc. Remove the snap rings from the pawl shafts. Then remove the pawls and the pawl springs. This completes disassembling of the brake portion. Loosen the domed cap nut. Tap the head of the pinion by plastic hammer so as to remove the gear case assembly easily. Put the hoist body on the wooden blocks and remove the gear case. Remove all the old grease, then remove the gear number 2 and the pinion. As for capacity 1.6 tons or less, the load gear and the load sheave are solid casting. Therefore, the load gear is not removed at this point. As for capacity 2.5 tons or larger, load gear will be removed at this point. Pull out the top pin to remove the top hook set. This completes disassembling of gearing parts. Remove the frame B, the chain guide, and the stripper. Remove the load sheave. For 1.6 tons or less, the load sheave and the load gear is removed. This completes all the disassembling of L5 LB. Check all the parts if there is any damage, deformation, or abrasion in accordance with the manuals of inspection and troubleshooting in the L5 LB Owner's Manual. Do not reassemble components beyond the limits of stated criteria in the manual. For example, deformed or abraded load chain, hooks, chain pin, and so forth. Ensure to secure the nuts and bolts firmly. Ensure to use brand new snap rings and split pins and secure them firmly. Set the select lever to neutral. With the select lever pulled in the upper direction, insert the hex part of the select lever into the select pawl. Apply grease lightly to the pawl of the select pawl. Apply grease lightly to the spring shaft. Insert the spring shaft into the select pawl spring and attach them into the spring holder. Ensure to clean the friction side of the female thread. Do not apply oil or grease on its friction side. Attach the friction side of the female thread to the brake cover assembly. Set the lever assembly on the brake cover assembly. Secure them with hex cap screw and flange nuts. This completes assembling of the lever assembly. Attach the bottom hook set to the load chain with the chain pin, the slotted nut, and the brand new split pin. Apply moly grease to the inner part of the bearing hole of the frame A. Attach the load sheave to the frame A assembly. Face the side of the load sheave where it has no gear or serration. Set the load chain to the load sheave with its welding part directed outward. Keep the chain stopper link in parallel with the frame. Set the chain guides and the stripper. Reeve the load chain through the load sheave and the chain guides. Apply moly grease to the bearing part of the frame B. Make sure to set the flat parts of the frame A in the frame B in the same side with the holes for the top pin arranged. This completes assembling of the load sheave and the load chain. Apply grease on the top pin, then insert it from the side of the frame B. Fit the top hook set between the frame A and the frame B. This completes assembling of the load sheave, the load chain, and the top hook set. Use 2 wooden blocks. Apply moly grease on the pinion. Then insert it into the load sheave and set the gear number 2 while aligning both O marks on the straight line. If the O marks are not aligned on the straight line, the gears won't rotate. For capacity of 2.5 tons or more, attach the load gear to the load sheave completely. If necessary, use a plastic hammer. Apply good enough grease to gear cogs and shaft of the pinion, the gear number 2 and the load gear. For volume of grease, refer to the owner's manual. Fit the rims of the gear frame B and the gear case in the right direction. Set the gear case over the gears and fix it firmly to the stay bolts. If the body is laid down, the domed cap nut can be tightened easily. Apply rust preventative oil or ordinary machine oil to the pawl shaft and the pawl. For the pawl, just coat it. Do not apply too much. Set the pawl springs to the pawl shafts while inserting their tips into the holes of the frame B. Then set the pawls to the pawl shafts. Do not set them in reverse direction. Confirm that the pawls are properly engaged with pawl springs. Set the pawl with the snap ring. Confirm that the snap rings are firmly fixed and have no deformation. Make sure that the snap ring turns around the brake shaft smoothly and it doesn't open too wide. Then apply rust preventative oil on the pawls. Before setting the brake parts, confirm that no oil or grease is applied on the friction disc and friction plates. Friction plates for L5 LB are dry type. Do not apply oil to them. Make sure that the bushing has sufficient oil. If the bushing oil is not enough, soak the bushing in turbine oil for a day and wipe extra oil for reuse. While holding two pawls outward, set the friction disc, the friction plate, the bushing, the ratchet disc, and the friction plate to the pinion properly in this order. Confirm if the pawl and the ratchet disc are properly engaged. Check the clicking sound by rotating the ratchet disc clockwise. In case no clicking sound is heard, the pawl or the ratchet disc is set in reversed direction. In this case, correct the direction. This completes assembling of the brake. Set the select lever to neutral. Then attach the pre-assembled lever assembly to the body. Fit the rims of the Frame A assembly and the brake cover assembly in the right direction. Assemble the brake cover assembly and Frame A assembly by screwing the female thread clockwise to the thread of the pinion until it makes clicking sounds. Confirm that the brake cover and the Frame A are securely set without gap between them. Then fasten the brake cover firmly to the stay bolt. To eliminate a clearance in the brake section, perform the following procedures before moving to the next step. Set the select lever to up position. Turn the lever assembly clockwise to tighten the brake lightly. Insufficient hold of the chain makes clicking sounds, but the clearance is still eliminated. After tightening, make sure that the female thread will not rotate counterclockwise. Set a jog of the cam guide to the right a little bit from the center of the female thread's jog. If you can't set the cam guide to the right a bit, reverse its direction and try again. Apply moly grease lightly to the inside of the free knob. Set the silver color brake spring into the slot of the back of the free chain knob. Set the end of the brake spring to the rib of the free chain knob. Set the select lever to neutral. Then fit the other end of the brake spring to the jog of the female thread. Hold the load chain in the hook side firmly to prevent the load sheave from rotating. Turn the free chain knob 120 degrees clockwise. Turn the select lever to the up position in order to avoid popping out of the free chain knob. With the free chain knob retained by the select lever, hook the outward projecting end of the free chain spring onto the slot at the back of the spring holder. Hook the other inward projecting of the spring onto the slot of the free chain knob. Press the spring holder lightly toward the free chain knob assembly. Then turn it 120 degrees counterclockwise to insert it along the pinion serration. With the spring holder held, fasten it with a slotted nut. Loosen the slotted nut in slight angle to align the pinion hole and the slot of the nut on the same line. Check free chain performance. Then fix the slotted nut with the brand new split pin. If the chain doesn't perform freely, the hoist has been improperly assembled. Then reassemble in accordance with the owner's manual. This completes assembling of the free chain mechanism. With this assembling, all the assembling of L5 LB lever hoist is completed. After the assembly, do the pre-operational checks with the following points before reuse. Pre-operational checkpoints are as follows. Check defects in appearance and any parts left to be assembled. Set the select lever to neutral and pull out the free chain knob for free chain mode. Ensure to perform the free chain operation. Without load, perform lifting and lowering operation and make sure the following. Should be free from irregular clicking sounds in lifting or abnormal sounds. Should be free from heavier pull to lift. Should be free from brake slipping. Ensure that the hoist operates properly under no load before checking the hoist with a load. Perform load tests in accordance with the appropriate standard or regulation in your country. This is the example of the load test using dummy load. At this test, ensure that there is no brake slipping and any other abnormalities. For informing you of proper procedure of disassembling, assembling, and checking. With the owner's manual, we hope that this video will help your maintenance, troubleshooting, and safe operation for a long time.